This week, I was asked about how to trim surface edges and why it doesn't work in some cases. So I thought I would prepare a quick little demonstration set of how this operates and some of the things that influence it. Here you can see I've got 6 points laid out, and I'm just going to come into surfacing. I'll grab all of those and I'll create a surface. Now we can see here that it's grabbing between number 4 and number 6, and maybe I don't want it to do that. Maybe the actual shape that I was trying to surface was something more like, just wrap a line string around here, close. Maybe it was something more like this. In order to get rid of this extra triangle, we can do a couple of things. When I select the surface, you'll see that we have a maximum edge length here. Now, if I come in and just inspect what this distance is, 32 meters. So if I reduce that down below that 32 meters, what should happen is it will cut that triangle out. So let's go to 30, and we see that one disappears. But on complex surfaces, that can be a little bit tricky. Let's leave that up at 50. And we'll want to manually go through and trim these. So the other thing that we could do here is trim surface edge. Just on the surfaces tab and come to trim surface edge. Just have to be in plan view, click on the outside, click on the inside, and it removes that. We can remove more triangles as long as there is a connection between all of the elements that are held within the surface. And so if I wanted to get rid of these two triangles across here, that's going to be problematic because now I don't have a connection out to 2. I'd actually have to remove number 2 from the surface. So that's some of the rules that apply when we're building the surface. And we'll just have a look in the Project Explorer, surfaces, and we have a surface there that I could select. Onto the problem that I was sent earlier this week. So I'll just come to New, and we'll go to a metric scale only. And I'll grab this particular file. It's an XML, and XML can contain points, lines, and surfaces, reasonably good for exchanging data between packages, one of the standard formats that we use everywhere across different software vendors. So I'll drag and drop that in. There's some duplicate vertices, some intersection points, break lines, and final tin. Final tin was imported, bunch of points. So that all makes sense. And this is what we've got in there. Now, if we have a look at our view filter, we've got some things on 0, which we can get rid of. That happen to be all of the contours. And I'll just collapse this down, get rid of the surface for a moment. Okay, so we've got points, we've got contours and lines, and we've got a surface. If I have a look in here, it looks exactly the same as the surface that I just generated. The difference being, when I generated a surface, my surface members were only these components out here. And based on the definition I had, I was forming triangles across this section. And so when I came to trim surface edge, I could actually come from the outside to the inside and remove those because there was no actual elements that were members of that surface that I was removing. I was just removing additional triangles that had formed because of the way it was defined. In this case though, all of these triangles are part of this surface, because of the way that it's been exchanged and brought across to us. So we have to take a different method here in order to edit the surface and produce something that doesn't have all of this, let's call it rubbish, off down the side. We can do this in a couple of ways. I could select this and come to Explode Surface. And I could choose to put it into a whole new layer. Let's do that for a second. Just brought up my layer manager. And I'll call it Final Tin members, close, and I'm going to go OK. Okay, so that's exploded the surface. So now if I turn off my surface, the only thing I've got left is the actual members of it that have been exploded out. And so what I can do to make edits here is just come in and start making deletions. And you can see here, doesn't look like that should have been in there either. Looks like some steps across how this was generated. And we just work our way around to clean this up quite a bit. Get rid of some of this stuff. Looks like all of this should go as well. Probably use polygon select and do this a little bit faster, but anyway. Okay, so let's assume that was how the surface should look. Now I can grab it all again. We can come back to surface, create new, we'll call it final, is it trim or tin? Final tin, I'll say updated. Okay. We can turn off that. We've just got this surface. Okay. So now we have our final tin updated. We can make edits here to the surface. All of these components are actually members of it. We could go through and add those extra lines or anything else, but because of the way it's come through, we're actually using all of those as our breaks coming down through there anyway. So it doesn't seem to be anything problematic with the surface we've created. You'd do a bit more inspection. This has happened in two sections though. I've brought in the surface and then I have exploded it and made those edits. Now let's roll back for a second. Okay, just starting a new project. We're going to start over and I'll go back to import. I'll point it to the same file and this time I'm using import instead of drag and drop so that I can expand these settings. So now I'm going to explode the surface as it's imported, and the layer name that will be used for the exploded surface is the surface name. So I should see that populate into my view filter. And we can hit OK. That's fine. Won't worry about the errors this time. And now you can see if I turn off that surface, I turn off my 0, I turn off my points, what I'm left with is all of these CAD 3D polylines. So each of the triangles is stored as a triangle, and I'm able to do the same thing just without having to go the extra step of stepping through and making edits on the surface to explode it as we step through. So just another way of doing the same thing, but maybe a little bit faster if you know that you're going to have to make edits as you come into some of these areas and that you're having problematic surface that needs some editing, hasn't been generated correctly at the start, and you're wanting to make edits on it. Same thing, once I've made my edits on the actual geometry there, then I can make a selection of the whole thing. I can come to surfaces and I can call this one, again, final tin, updated. Turn off the members of it, and there we go. We now get our final tin without the additional triangles sitting off to the side there. Hope that's been helpful for you. And tune in again for another little tips and tricks.